And welcome to Practising Programming in C, in which we're going to continue, encoding overloaded, because it's turned in on various settings, so that is still happening. I wonder if I need to go back and find my old configuration and see exactly what it was all set to. Because I don't remember having that problem before. And I don't want to continue to have that problem. Yeah, we can see that the CPU usage. So here we go, CPU usage preset. Higher equals less CPU. So let's just go for faster rather. I don't think this is taking effect. Could it be this actually? It's saying 61% there. It doesn't affect that at all. I think it's only affecting. Yeah, you can see that little notch there. It only affects the upload amount. It should go up to over 6,000. Yeah, I don't know. I'll put this on faster, and just see what happens next time. So yeah, before we were really interrupted by that, we were welcoming ourselves to the stream, weren't we? So yeah, welcome heroes and heroines to the exciting instalment of Hamid Hero of Practising Programming in C. In which we resolve variable names. How long should we do? We could do a couple of hours. Yeah, we could do a couple of hours and get some food. Let's get another hour queued up. Let's see what the second hour of Amadou and Baru and Thingamajig. An hour 44, that's perfect. So here we go, resolving variable names. So the goal here is to go through our parsed things and resolve things like that and this and this. So things like this is an environment variable, this is a local variable, this is a local variable as well, this is also a local variable, as are these dudes down here. So the overriding picture is that we should first attempt to resolve local variables. If it is unresolvable, we then try and resolve it. Well, let me put it another way. When we encounter one of these, we try and resolve it as a local variable. If there is a local variable for home, then we use that. Otherwise, we then go to environment variables and we try and see if we can resolve it as an environment variable. If we can, then we use it. If not, we could probably warn, couldn't we? We could just say variable not set. That's probably what we'd want to do. And another thing we'd like to do is, what we have to do as a part of this whole thing, is to determine how much of how much of this string here is actually supposed to be, or how much of it is intended to be part of a variable, for which I think we'd need to look up the rules for shell variable expansion, I think, to see how they do it, because this is that syntax. You know, you can do this in your shell. You can like do echo home, for example, right? Similarly, you can do this. So that allows you to do things like that, right? So you get that, and then you get the rest of it. But without those, you'll try and resolve this whole thing, and you get fuck all. So we need that ability to actually delineate these things, and we'll also need to be able to escape those so they don't get resolved. So in other words, so you'd end up with the full thing getting written out rather than it trying to resolve it as a variable. And we'll also need backslash escaping for the strings, actually, in the tokenizer or the parser, actually. So maybe as a first step we could just do that. We could get the tokenizer knowing about backslash escaping, get the tokenizer and the parser knowing about backslash escaping. And then let's move on to doing the resolver. So what are these things exactly? They're like actually probably can't actually search for that, can I? Right, token strings. So it's these sorts of things here. Now where are they getting from? Okay, so it's coming from up here. We'll also need a new line thing, won't we? So you can actually report the errors properly. But let's leave that for now. Let's just do the backslash escaping. Unhandled. We don't have an unhandled thing. An unhandled, is that ever used? So we never see the token unhandled. We never use it. So that's an unhandled character, apparently. This is a tokenizer, isn't it? Yeah. So I think the idea here is that we're just not pushing on unhandled characters onto the tokens thing. Which I think would have been the only point of having that unhandled. This thing here. Let's comment this out for now. Just do a to-do. I think all of these actually, quite a lot of them, could just be compressed. Comments. Yeah, like these guys here. Right, the assigned, the brace. So basically the guys who are single character things. Well, I mean, that's not quite exactly true, is it? Because the double quote is a single character, but we treat it differently. I don't think I have any backslashes yet, so that should be all exactly the same. But let's just say, for the sake of argument, that we have this sort of an idea per mountain. Let's just do that. Hey, look at that. If Pear's surname ended S-O-N rather than S-E-N, we could just like insert in the word person V-O-G-N and get his name. That's pretty amazing. So here we go. I think we should encounter a syntax error here, because what we should be finding is we're going to come into here. It's going to see PER. Yeah, the tokenizer is going to come through here. It's going to tokenize this as an identifier. It's going to skip the white space. Tokenize this as an assignment. It's going to see this string. It's going to say while we're on a valid string. Oh, actually, no, sorry. It's just while this thing is not an open double quote character. Increase the length. Right, and then once it sees that, it's going to close the string, and it's going to expect a semicolon. So we will end up with a string that is like PER backslash. Yeah, which is exactly what we've got. So what we want to do is, when we're inside a string, we just need to handle this slightly differently. We don't want to basically want to end up with this little assignment here looking like right. That's the string that we want to end up producing. So that doesn't include the backslashes. Which is kind of troublesome, isn't it? If you think about it, because yeah, that's interesting. maybe this ends up being part of the resolver actually. Do you know what I mean? So like, maybe we do actually just stick this entire thing, including this, into the parse tree, and then let the resolver handle this stuff. The only reason I say that is that if we do it the other way to do it would be to create an entirely new string from this that omits the backslashes. But then we're in the situation where we've got some stuff that are just pointers directly into the buffer that's containing this file contents, and we've got some stuff that's been allocated specially, and we'll have to have a way to distinguish between the two. So I think, yes, we shouldn't do that. We should just say that we just make this entire string part of the string, and we leave this resolution down to the resolver. So how do we do that? So if we've got double quotes, interestingly, we do have this actually. Oh, that means that we shouldn't tokenize it. Right, boom. So that's part of the thing here. We shouldn't tokenize that dude. Although I don't think that'll solve our problem, will it? It won't solve the issue here. Is that right that we shouldn't tokenize actually? Because where are we talking about making the backslash escaping actually happen? I think we're only talking about it happening within strings. And if we're pushing the strings on, including the backslash escape, including this backslash character as the token, leaving the resolution down below, then I don't think we should be bothering about backslashes there. I think we might still be... Basically what I'm driving at is, right, if we were to do this, they would end up being able to tokenize this because this isn't inside a string. But this ain't valid syntax, right? We're just not allowing that. Similarly that. And we also don't have the idea... Yeah, I mean, even inside, because you can do this kind of thing, can't you? We just don't even have that idea either. But even if we did, like, as per our thing of just tokenizing this entire thing, you don't need to, tokenizing this whole thing as a string. You don't need to bother that that's a backslash. So yeah, screw it. It's possible that we'll end up adding this back in when we come to the resolver, depending on how I actually do it. Whether I use the same tokens, whether I use the same information up here, which I probably will actually. I probably just add $1 to this. But yeah, we'll add that when we actually need it. So the tokenizer. Oh right. So the buffer. So we need to just check that we're not at the start of the buffer. The value of that minus 1 is not a thing. Then we increment. But if it is a thing, I see. Yeah. So it would be trying to stick this into a string, and it'd still consider that to be part of the string. So this ain't the right check. Is that right? Would you do it like that? Don't know. We need to make sure that we actually stay within the fucking file, don't we? Do we do this check first, actually? I think we do, don't we? So you make sure you get past that, and then the idea is that if you see that, you skip past that, and then you should be skipping past the next person as well. Yeah, so that's correctly got. We should see pair in the Cinera included. Well, what is it including? It's allowing pair Bonson. Oh, that should be. It should be showing up as a invalid something. So something's up there. Unit setting in Cinera config included, not permitted. So allow load in token as a parsing included file. Invalid field. Did I save the file? I'm sure I did because I was getting it to fail. So this is the first instance of the including. So load in token as a parsing included file include person setting in Cinera file include not permitted. Invalid field. Something. That should be being reported, shouldn't it? Right. Like, where's Bones showing up? I spelled, yeah. So yeah, for some reason that ain't showing up. Anyway, you know, like it's not even showing up as something you're not allowed to do. And I think it should be showing up. So that would be in parse include. You go through the entire. Oh! Right, yeah, advancement is 1. Yeah, that is correct. Okay, so parse include rules. Let's do print current token. Let's print it in yellow. Should be a font colour. And let's also just print the function name is, just so we know where we are. So let's parse include rules. Print out space. So here's parse include rules. Open brace include that. Yeah, right. I need to be doing that in some sort of a loop, don't I? This is where I want to be doing it. yeah, that's right. I don't give a shit about that. Whatever that token is up there, semicolon or open brace, which is, well, it's open brace up there. I don't care about that. Yeah, also, I do want to be able to print that out because that is what we're actually talking about here. This for loop is going to be looping through something like this. So, parse include rules. So it's an identifier allow. So you want to then increment that and return success. Is that what I would expect to be happening? What is this? This is parse rule string. Again, have I just gone to the wrong thing? I think I have, haven't I? I think I want to be saying token string. It's actually this, isn't it? It's parse rule string that I want to be actually looking at. All I'm trying to see here is if I can get that piece of information. So parse rule string. So we've got a token rule string. Here we go. I've got this function. I have index. I don't think I care. Do I what the index is? Yeah, okay. So we've got a string, which is that. Now the thing is, right, having got this, we're going through these guys, and where's push rule? So push rule, there's a push rule here. So we're apparently going to be trying to push on a rule. Ah, okay, I see. So we're currently not really caring whether this thing is even a valid thing, are we? A valid identifier. We have them all though, don't we? So we've got is valid identifier character. Yeah, if get a config identifier from string, then we push a rule. Ah. So it is the rule string, isn't it? It's the token content. So the rule string incompatible type. Oh right, what's it taking? It's taking a pointer to a string, and we need to pass it. Right. Yeah. Okay. So we're seeing it 3 times. Parse rule string says 3 calls to parse rule string. Looks a bit suspicious, doesn't it? Parse rule string. So we've got one call to it in here, parse rule string. So yeah, a single call to parse rule string is calling. Oh, I beg your pardon. Actually, it's the single call to parse rule string. So for the length of, oh, I see. Right. Interesting. The rule string that's passed in. Yeah, okay. Confidence from string. I reckon actually I need to be printing the string. That would be the more appropriate thing to actually print. So I can just see how that's actually going through the thing. And also Oh, right, I see. Interesting. That's what's happening. It's because of it's because the backslashes characters. Because the backslashes are not valid identifier characters. Kind of almost seems that you need to do a full-on tokenize of this little guy. Yeah, I've not got no good idea as to how to handle that actually, without going a bit more crazy. So maybe I'll just leave that like that. Because all this has to do here, it's already an invalid. You can do some kind of unescaped string func for every identifier. The thing though, I could do, couldn't I? My thought is that identifiers can't include backslashes at all. I mean, that would handle our case, though, wouldn't it? Here, if you say that, so you imagine that an identifier could conceivably contain backslashes, string little instead of identifier. So yeah, if you just don't bother if it's an identifier character, so you're just sort of saying, don't know what classes are. Right, okay, so an identifier is just, I'm just calling this thing an identifier. So it's basically the left side of an assignment, basically. Or is this, what do you call them? It's a left L expression? I'm not sure. It's the thing that you sort of set to be something, if that makes sense. As distinct from a string. In fact, I can show you the list of identifiers as well. Probably, yeah. It's all these. The top one is just for the null identifier. So yeah, you can kind of see that we've got to allow identifiers that contain a dash or an underscore. So basically, L value, that's it, yeah. It's an L value. So yeah, we only have to, because I mean, you could conceivably do something like this, couldn't you? Right, and in our syntax, that should be permitted, I think. That should get tokenized correctly. And I think you should be able to do that in C, shouldn't you? Or can you actually? Oops. Yeah, you can do that in C. So yeah, that's got parsed exactly the same way. Should get pair coincidence on, yeah. I mean, it doesn't have to be C-like. It could be. It can be our own spec. And it isn't fully C-like because of the resolution stuff that we're going to have to handle. You need to handle this essentially shell variable resolution sort of stuff. Shell variable style resolution. But yeah, I mean, what you're saying in terms of strings, how do you determine? I suppose rather than saying is thingamajig, maybe we just use the strings logic. So you know when you tokenize the string, as I just did actually, because that backslash escaping wasn't working. But if you use this logic for the includes, because this is effectively going to be the same logic, right? Because well, actually, no, it's not. This is part of the problem as well, insofar as, because I need to actually delineate all of this stuff. That's part of it, right? If I use the strings logic, and I just sort of say, while it's while it's not a thingamajig, and if we happen to encounter a backslash, then skip past it, then this whole thing is going to get passed in as one string, which is what I'm actually trying to trying to handle that, basically, and make sure that we parse out this part first, and then work our way through to here. And I'm doing a bit hackily as well, because all I'm saying is go through the entire. So this thing gets tokenized as a string, as one single string. And I'm just saying go through the entire length of the string. And if, while it is a valid identifier character, so while it is something that can go in an identifier, go through it and consider that to be a possible part of the thing. And then if it isn't, so it's going through the full string. Remember, it continues to iterate, and it just says if it's not a valid identifier character, it just continues to iterate. So it doesn't actually know that this is a brace, right? You could actually just do this. you could do whatever syntax you want actually. Do that. You could do absolutely whatever. So I don't actually enforce some kind of string interpolation. Yeah. Parse include rule. What was it? Was it parse rule string? Yeah, so this is where we are. And it's just saying, for the length of the rule string, as I was just saying, is a valid identifier character. Yeah, just set up a string. Get going with a new string. And then go through this situation here. And once it becomes no longer a valid identifier character, it just iterates. So it doesn't do this. So it will still try and get a string going. Well, if it's a valid identifier character. So that's kind of the problem here. So this syntax is valid, right? Well, I mean, I say it's valid. It's handled by this. But you could equally, like I say, you could do that because the space isn't a valid identifier character. You know, so I haven't tried this, but I think this should just get passed. Okay. Should include. Just, I think the issue there, it just would have refused to include. Maybe, and I think the mediums wouldn't have been showing up, would they? You can see the mediums are there because you can include mediums from the file. And product default medium, and it hasn't complained. Let's just undo that and just see if that actually happens. I think I'm right in saying that the mediums wouldn't show up in this. Okay, so they do. So maybe I'm just permissive enough. If it's an unknown identifier, so this is an unknown identifier, I guess I just go on and just... Yeah, I guess that isn't a failure case. Strangely enough. And yeah, like I was saying, I guess the way I was just handling it was just to print out that it's an unknown identifier. So it's essentially a warning, but it can continue to do the stuff if it's syntactically valid. You know, something like this would actually make it throw a syntax error. So it is a bit fast and loose actually, isn't it? Sort of just doing this. You know, not enforcing no syntax on that. I think that should work. Product default medium. And the way this exhibits itself, by the way. So if I include, so the Cinera included looks like this. We're talking about including this. So unit chapter is not permitted. Default medium for programming for the risky project within risky, right? Because I'll show you where that ends up. This has been included at the root scope. So you need to go into the first risky, and then the second risky. Right, so we've got the first risky here within the root scope, and then this risky here. And we're not setting the default medium in here, but it's getting absorbed from the thing that was essentially pasted into this area here. So we should see, this is our entire parse tree here. You should see inside the interior risky, the default medium will be set to programming. Yeah, it is. But we could overwrite it here. We could sort of say default medium. And you should see, yeah, default medium has been overwritten as Blackboard. So that was to describe... What was that describing? You would enforce that between identifiers or something. Okay. You would enforce this. All right. So yeah, I mean, the syntax that I had was that. I'm happy with either way. I think I decided on this because it was because that's the syntax that you're writing already. You know, you don't have an occurrence of this sort of a thing inside the file, so you couldn't really figure out, if you're writing one of these allow rules, you couldn't really figure out this by trial and error unless you happen to know that this was a convention in another language. You wouldn't know it wouldn't be something that you'd necessarily try. Whereas I think this is something that you would conceivably try. You know, because you do write stuff like project and then braces. So I think I would stick with this, and you're saying to enforce that. Okay. I think I'd also allow, because whitespace isn't important in this language, I think I'd also allow that. You know, because this should be valid. Hero code. Yeah, I mean it's passed it, so it hasn't died on us. So yeah, whitespace isn't important. So we could reasonably expect to have, you get through here, skip whitespace, and then you could expect, if it's a valid identifier character, then do this. Otherwise, if it's a if it's a brace, then skip past it. I think did I even end up making this? Yeah, I did. So the position. So I want to skip the thing starting from here. Oh yeah, that was the thing, wasn't it? I was like, I need to do this somewhere else, not here, because once you got into this situation, you actually have missed this. You've passed this check, but you might actually try and skip whitespace and kill yourself, jump off the cliff. Should use less fatal imagery. So, doesn't like, it wants to point it to a string. Oh, right. Yeah. Stub one's toe. Yeah. I think that's an okay one. Although I don't know, stubbing one's toe is really painful. It's amongst the most painful things, isn't it? Although it's not fatal. So there is that for it. And I think the deal was, wasn't it, that we skip whitespace at the head of these things. Let's do it up front. Actually, I need that there. And what is that actually taking? It is the eye, isn't it? Oh no, it's not. So that can just take 0. So it starts at the start of the string and returns to us the new position, which is fine. I think that should be alright. So, we're skipping whitespace. If it's a valid identified character, then we go in. I suppose in doing this check also, we might as well allow it to loop. So rather than actually doing all these interior loops and all this business, well, mind you, we do need the type spec. So yeah, I mean essentially, we're doing tokenized scope again, scope tokens essentially. It's like a cut down version of it. So it's kind of interesting. So those are the other things that we should actually be accepting in here. Everything else shouldn't be permitted. I think the idea here is well, actually, let's just say scope level just to distinguish between them. Actually, let's make it assigned. So you got a scope level there. Oh no, because when it loops back around, this guy is going to handle that, the incrementing of I. So we don't need to do that in here. Yeah, if it's an invalid character, I think if it's an invalid character, you then want to just return, don't you? Like, you see an invalid character somewhere in here, it's like all bets are off, I think. That's what I'll say. And we're not returning anything, I don't think, are we? No. By the way, this music is really cool. Amadou and Mariam, welcome to Mali. I'll pop it into here as well. So I think we need the idea of type specs. Where's the first type spec? The first type spec is down here. It's an ID. Yeah, I mean, we could actually. As I say, we're basically doing what the guy down in the other function are doing. What have we got actually? We've got the type specs. We don't have the. What don't we have? We don't have the parse tree, That's the person who usually contains the type spec. Is it add-in null? Is that what you do? Okay, unused variable. Well, actually, we need to know the actual. We need to know actually where this guy. If we're going to do it properly, we should know. We should be passing in where this guy's actually been written. So you really need to, when we do parse include rules, yeah, so we're going to have in here the actual parent's type spec. Yeah, you see here, parent scope token is essentially this idea here. And we need to pass this through to the parse rule dudes. Sorry, parent type is what I called it, wasn't it? So you pass this through to parse rule string, and then this guy receives and then we just say this. Actually, maybe I can safely use that parent type spec like that, because I'm not passing that as a pointer to a pointer, so I shouldn't be modifying that. So I think we should be able to just use that directly. So wherever we see type spec, you know what? I'm glad you actually encouraged me to do this properly, because it does feel better to actually be a bit more informative about what's going on and actually nail down what people can and can't do. So this type spec is going to come in. Yeah, I mean, we're into this kind of situation. It's just the same dude. It's the field thing. It's like if it's field in thingamajig. And the way we do this is by passing the spec and a config identifier. Let's do this out here. Yeah, what are we basing this on? I mean, we could, like I say, we could actually retain the, if you encountered this, unfortunately I'm nulling that out, aren't I? If we do that, if we keep that hanging around, then for this particular field, if it's in spec, we push the rule. Oh. Really? Is that a function? I thought it wasn't exactly what I wanted. Current field is in spec. Oh, and this isn't it? Right, wasn't it? Oh no, it was yeah, it's set parent scope, isn't it? What does that actually do? Yeah, because that's an entire scope. Was it? Yeah, it's taking all sorts. Yeah, the scope tree is what that's returning. I mean, everybody. I mean, the main type specs knows about all the different types of specs. Knows about all the different types of type specs. So yeah, that probably is fine. And then here, we need to know who the parent's parent is. Oh, and it's that information we don't have, do we? Yeah, that's unfortunate. Well, hold on a second. Parent type spec is up here. Yeah, I mean, you can sort of imagine a rule. Somebody could conceivably write this. Right. And that would conceivably be valid. Or this is probably more like what could be an actual thing that somebody might want to write. You know, if they wanted to restrict it to be more restrictive than just the full person. Right. So basically, this whole type specs thing here is simply to ensure that if you see one of these, and remember that I passed in the parent type spec. So essentially, a type spec is just a description of, it's just a list of all the fields that a thing can contain. So at this level, this is the root scope. So this root scope can contain a number of fields. So if we include this file here, and if we include this file here, and we're passing in this assignment and these rule strings, if we include it here, then we have its parents type spec, so we know what can be included at this level, right? If we include it here, we're now similarly including the parent type spec, and this parent's type spec will be this, right? And a project can only contain a subset of, I mean, I think a project actually can contain quite a lot more, actually. But for example, a project cannot contain a medium, nor can it contain a person directly. Projects contain things like owners. Now, an owner is a person, but in the context of a project, we call them the owner. Basically because there can be different roles. You know, you can have an annotator, a co-host, or a guest. They're all people, but in the context of a project, we want to be able to set like you can't just say person, because you want to be able to say what their actual thing is, if you know what I mean. So in the context of getting all these type specs in, if you put this include, so that you've got this include at the root level, you know at this level you want to see if this is in this guy's type spec, is in the root type spec. First of all, which is what I'm doing, saying if the parent is in, if field's in spec here, right? Then if you see one of these, you want to grab the type spec of this person, of the this type, and you see what is in the type, and then you see the next thing, and you say if this thing if you can get the config identifier from this string, then you see if support is a valid field in the person, right? Actually, we could choose it out. We don't need to know. We don't need to know if there is a... No, right. Let's just specify that you can't... It's slightly cheesy. It's slightly cheesing out on it. But let us specify... We have this notion here, right? Each allow can only be talking about one field, right? You can't do stuff like that, right? That ain't valid. So what that implies is that you cannot escape from scopes. You cannot like go back out of a scope, for example. So you can't sort of say you're talking about a person support URL and then back out of that and say that you want to talk about I mean that wouldn't, I don't think that would even be at all syntactically valid. Does that make any sense at all? You know, the only reason for having these brackets at all at the end is just to make sure that you've actually scoped them. And also, I mean, yeah, you know, that enforcing that is kind of nice because it's like, it's less syntactically onerous. It's less syntactically onerous while actually giving us some enforceability. By which I mean that if these things don't indicate anything, you might as well omit them, right? Because the only point of these things is to get us to pop back up to previous scopes. But if our rule is that a single allow assignment can only be talking about a single scope in the case of a medium, or a single specific field in the case of this, or similarly, if you were to say update interval, right, that's a single string assignment. You could put that validly. If we're saying that the rule is you can only have one of those things in, then that follows that, you know, these closing scopes are unnecessary. So I did mention it the other day as well, didn't I? About just having that dot syntax. And insofar as it's also just mentioned, maybe you'd enforce that. I mean, it'd been a good point about the learnability of, um, producing these things. I'm kind of inclined to say, now that we've worked through it and we've figured out, well, we've actually remembered our rule that you can only set one thing, and that the only purpose of this is to actually allow us to pop back scopes, as I was almost going to do here. Pop back scopes and set the new parent type. That isn't something that should be happening. We should be setting the correct type spec going down. We should be correctly seeing where this is included, and if these fields are validly in that type spec. And then, as we encounter one of these dudes, getting the new type spec in, we should be doing that. And also, this won't be right, because the URL, we won't be able to find, well, so we're seeing two things. I kind of feel, because of the way that our things are, I think I cheesed out on this on the other routine as well. Rather than allowing infinite of them, just say that we only have to support the depth of scopes that we even can do. Although, I'll tell you what. Because the only place where we have nesting, right? Right. This is valid. And then within you could kind of conceivably say, finally, you get there. So you only want to permit the default medium to be set within the third child of the third descendant of a project. I think that's just too silly. I mean, it is enforceable, I think, but I think it's enforceable anyway, because when we do this, you need to be saying that you can add all of the fields for a project. Sorry, that's not true. When you do this, you need to be saying that you can set all fields for a project. When you say this, you need to be able to say that you can set the project field of a project. I mean, that's... It's probably not something we need to handle. So yeah, I think I'm actually inclined to change this to be like this. Right, and you can do it however you like. And if you prefer to set them, well, can't do that. But if you prefer to space them out, you can do that. Yeah, I'm inclined to do it like that. Only because a couple of reasons. Well, what I think has got it in its favour. It is more syntactically easy to enforce, right? It's not like two-sided. Like, you don't need to like scope the ends of at the ends of the thing. And also, it sort of gives you a hint, because of the fact that you can't close a scope. It kind of gives you a hint that you can only set one thing, doesn't it? The only downside of it is that you need to learn it. You know, you can't figure this out from the other stuff that you've written. So there we go. And we don't need to do about the scope levels because we don't have that thing at all. We do, however, need to be able to get down to that scope. Right, and that was the question, wasn't it? We've got the type specs coming in. We've got the parent type spec, which is going to be this parent here, right? And this parent's type spec, sorry, ignore that. We've got this type spec coming in, and that is this type spec, the root type spec, in this context here. We're going to be coming through, seeing if field is in spec. So we're seeing if person is within the root spec, the root type spec. If it is, push it on. I'm going to continue. We're going to get to here, parent type spec. We're going to be setting the new parent type spec. So what we want to be doing is setting the new type spec to be person. And then go back around. Yeah, we set that. I think we will be able to... Basically, my issue here is we're always looking... I don't want to end up in a situation where we try and find the type spec for this example, for example. This is a situation that we could have to handle, right? So we've done all of this. We've passed in this dude, and we now we've hit the dot. And we want to get the parent for the URL, but there is no type spec for the URL. So I think you just sort of actually say invalid assignments. I think that's all you need to do, and that should handle all the people that we need to, all the scopes that we can handle. Strangely enough. I'm not sure if I was making much sense there. But essentially, the way that we're doing this differently from how we're doing this type spec getting in the full parser is that this is getting the type spec from the full lot of type specs, which is being passed in, which contains all the type specs for the scopes. But this thing doesn't. We don't have a thing that's actually storing full scopes, and which has like a pointer to their parent, essentially. We're just passing this straight in. I mean, actually, that wouldn't actually be a problem, though, would it? If I think about it, because we have got that information down there. So just bear with me a sec. So we're passing the parent type spec. I mean, we could conceivably just pass the fucking parent, actually. And then we've got the whole thing. The thing I don't want to have happen is I don't want to have the parent getting set to something different. Which I don't think it should do. Should it, if I just pass it as the right thing? And the parent here, by the way, is a scope tree. So I'll just show you how I'm talking about the difference here. The thing that I've been passing through has just been this config type spec, but a scope tree contains all of this stuff. I mean, I guess you could just store the incoming parents if you have to. Although it shouldn't do, should it? Like, I mean, if it does change the parent, then I'll store it. But I don't think it will. So was it called config? What was it called? Scope tree. And this guy's just passing it straight through to this. Yeah, it was this, wasn't it? Yeah, we would kind of ideally need to set the... Yeah, I mean, this doesn't actually feel right. I'm not going to do this because basically that scope tree is actually to do with the parser that we're actually passing in. I don't want to be interfering with that at all. All I want to know is where they actually are at that point. So I'm gonna back this out and I'm gonna do it differently. So yeah, it's just passing the type spec. What is not liking? Okay. Yes, I think this is sufficient. And we don't need to know about scope levels. I was thinking of keeping the scope levels just so you can make sure that you actually wrote the thing syntactically correctly. So, actually, let me just write that actual thing. So this means that it's just an invalid config error. I mean, it's a bit cryptic, but that's basically the internal understanding of it. So we should have got here, shouldn't we? Well, maybe not. Field. Where are we getting it from? Well, we are getting it from there, aren't we? Yeah. I mean, actually, what could happen here is that somebody could say that. What would be the case of that? And then we got nothing, and it's just trying to set the type spec of something that we don't even have. So if we've even got a field, that's got to be a syntax error. Doesn't it? So quickly just do this. Okay. So I think we've nailed down the rules. We want to say we're going to be basically removing these push rule calls down here. Actually, an interesting thing about this, we could end up allowing multiple permissions on the one line by accident, right? Just bear with me a second. What is the error? Let me just nullify this for a moment. So we've printed out the string person support URL. Okay, we should have hit some. Person setting in files are not permitted. So this is after, this is later on. So it's, yeah, it hasn't found person setting in file. Medium setting is not permitted. That's interesting, isn't it? Let's just get that out of the mix. That doesn't seem right. Let's see what rules we're pushing on. Have I got a print config identifier? No. It's really good to push rule itself actually. Go there. Okay, so we're not pushing any rules, are we? So we're getting into parse rule string. Been passed a string. Whoa. What does that like? Don't like that. Unknown identifier. Okay, okay. Right, if we've got a valid identifier character, then we should be going through the thing. So it's the 0th token. Is valid identifier character. So, get copy identifier from string. What is that doing exactly? Because we're not actually seeing config error field not in spec, are we? We've never seen that. And why? So why aren't we seeing this? Let's step through it. So, what is our rule string? It is medium, so we're looking to see if we can find medium. Just going to skip the white space first of all. So it failed to get into that loop. Where did that fail? Hold on a minute. What? 29, 30, 31, 32. I is at 6. Why have we skipped so much white space? What? What? Oh, I was in the middle of writing it and never actually wrote it. Right, that'll make sense. Jesus. So, oh dear. Yeah, I mean it does help if you actually write the stuff you're talking about that you actually want. What doesn't it like? Expect expression before that. Oh. Oh, it's breaking on a different line now. Cheers. Right, that's better. So we're probably fine now. Okay. So there's our dudes, finally. Person support your ASG. Can't get a field not in spec. Perfect. It's the word I'm after. Does print token not print the new line? Where's that thing that I was printing in blue? Print C in blue bold. That doesn't print a new line. So essentially what we're talking about there is whenever you see this, medium, project, default medium, person support, object interval, it is pushing on those rules. So it's tried to push on the person, interestingly, and it's tried to push on the support, which sounds fine actually, but field not in spec. So it's hit this error. Why has it not hit well, which would it be? Yeah, so why are we not hitting this error? Let's see why. So we want to be, let's get to the person first of all. So we need to, so there's products to default meters. We added both of those rules, which is fine. And then we should be now at the now there, are we? Sorry, yeah, that's where I wanted to be, wasn't it? I wanted to be at that person. So on we go. So we should see that we'll get through the push rule. We should be able to push the rule for the person and the support. Yeah, pushing an add-in person. Let's actually break into the. We push the support. Perfect. So now let's step through and see where we're at. So we're going to see that is valid identifier. We're not going to pass this test, are we? Well, beg your pardon. Is that what I'd expect? Person support. I think actually I needed to. I think I've gone a bit too far here. Let's run it again. Watch the add-in person get passed in. So there's the project. Default medium. Yep, that's fine. So we've got the person. Now let's continue the step. We've got to there. This should be a dot, shouldn't it? Okay. I am failing to understand why we're not encountering that particular thing. So let's run it again. Default medium. Continue up to the top. We're now sitting at the person.support, so let's step through. Should still be a 0. Is it a valid identifier? It is. I suppose we've incremented I. Well, is it an invalid identifier? Is it a valid identifier character? Sorry, I beg your pardon. After incrementing I, is it a valid identifier character? So at this point, we should be sitting. Oh, right. I see. So we're never actually getting down there. Basically, what's happening is we're incrementing here, but then this dude is then going to skip us past the dot. Right. That's what's happening. Because we're going to be sitting at the dot right now. Yeah, that's what's going on. So we do need this guy to increment so we can actually perform this test and set this properly. We just need to prevent this from happening, and then we need to make this case skip past the thing. And this is returning, so that's fine. So here we go again. See, we're no longer incrementing I. I suppose also, actually, could break into here, couldn't I? So we do get here now. So if hit a project, what is the rule string? So at the project, and we just hit the dot. So we've identified that it's a project, which is perfect. Incrementing past the dot. Then here we'll just skip the white space, if any. Are we in a valid identifier? Yep. So now we're going to be parsing the default medium. Yeah, I think we're in business here. And I think we should hit that actual error that I was hoping to hit, which was this thing is not a valid type. Yeah, here we go. So we've just added the URL rule. We should find that we don't find the type spec for it. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, that's exactly what I wanted to see. And we exit normally. Cool. That's much better. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to go and get some food, quick sandwich. Then we'll come back. We will then just proof the stuff that we just did. Make sure it's correct. Pull out all the debug printfs, and then we can move on to the variable resolution. Yeah. Oh, yeah, the reason we had to do that was so that we could handle this situation. Right, let's just quickly just check that actually. Config error, unknown identifier, yeah. And that unknown identifier is going to be that Per Bonson. It's going to be this dude here. So yeah, that is what we were trying to actually do. So yeah, food time now, just a quick sandwich. And then we will continue. We'll do what I said, we'll just check this and whatever. So thank you very much, and thanks to Cinera for encouraging me to actually do better checking of that, because that actually enabled me to handle this and report that nicely. So yeah, that's all for now. See you in the next one. It should be half an hour's time for half an hour.